Hello and welcome everyone to the maiden voyage of WNBL ITV. I'm Darren Boyd and I'm here with my co-pilot Laurie Chiswick. And Laurie, isn't this fantastic to be part of this new initiative from the WNBL?
Absolutely, Darren. It's going to be fun each week to sit up here and have a bit of a chat, get to know the players, not only what they do on the court, but hopefully what they do off the court as well.
I think one of the most impressive things about this new adventure is actually this set they've got us on. I feel like I'm on Letterman or something.
I know. How great is it? It's really comfy up here.
Well, I know in a couple of weeks we're looking to actually go live with this show. We want to make it as interactive with you guys as possible. You can always tweet the WNBL. @WNBL is their Twitter handle. Check them out on Facebook and we'll respond to as many of your questions and comments and issues as we possibly can right throughout the show. We'll be here every Wednesday and we'll keep you up to date with the details of our times for broadcast and, again, whether we can go live. I just want the band to come in maybe in a few weeks, Laurie, as well.
That would be perfect. Send us those questions, though. It'll be fun to answer them.
All right, coming up on today's show, we've actually been very lucky because we've been able to actually arrange for one of the biggest stories ever in WNBL history to be broken today, and we'll be giving you an update on that a little bit later in the show with our intrepid reporter, Catherine Murphy, who's going to be joining us right throughout the year. We're going to catch up with Liz Cambage as well, and we're also going to have a look back at the games from round one and also forward to what's coming up in round two of the Women's National Basketball League. But Laurie, before we get into any of that, I just want to ask you about your expectations for the season. I can't remember coming into a WNBL season with expectations as high as this. It just looks so even.
Well, you talk to anybody out there in the league, the coaches, the players, the officials, and nobody can pick a clear winner this year. You know, you think of 5 or 6 teams that are legitimate finals chances and right up there in the grand final.
And the talent's pretty hard, basically unmatched. And in the time that I've been involved in the league, and you may feel similarly as well, because the recent years when players have been going overseas, it's been hard to attract them back to the WNBL. But this year, with the Olympics on the horizon, we've had a real influx.
Well, to have those opals back on the shores and having Carrie Graf watch them and competing, we've got a record number of foreign players playing this year. So I think the whole level of the competition is going to lift.
No doubt about it. Now, what we're going to have a look now is at what happened in round one. We're going to start with our WNBL Game of the Week, which we brought to you on ABC TV. And it was, of course, the grand final replay live on last Saturday afternoon. And the Bulleen Boomers, Laurie, they had an entirely different lineup, but they still got the job done against the Caps.
Well, they did, Darren, and they had 5 players that had retired from last year. 2 headed overseas. One, unfortunately, was Elise Panaluna, who ruptured her ACL, so she was unable to go. But like you say, a complete new lineup, and they still just did incredibly well for that first game.
We should say for the Capitals as well, they had a vastly different lineup too. They lost Susie Batkovic in the off-season. She went over to the Adelaide Lightning, and also they're without Michelle Cozier at the moment too, which is it's a serious blow for them because Michelle's a vital member of their starting 5 and they're not sure when she's going to be back on the court.
Well, not having Michelle Cozier actually lifted Molly Lewis to starting line status, and there she was. She hasn't played for a couple of years. She used to play with the Sydney Flames, and there she was and found herself starting, and she did a great job for Canberra.
She did do a great job after a year or so out of the league, as did Michaela Dompkins. It was fantastic to see her back in the WNBL. She's had some horrific back injuries over the last couple of years. She had 11 points and 8 rebounds and was great for the Caps. But after a very close start to the game, Laurie, the Boomers just seemed to have too much firepower. As we were checking out some of the highlights here, they were led by that lady we just saw on screen, and here she is again, Samantha Richards.
Well, Sam had a great start to the season. It was really good to see her out there playing again. We know she's been away in Poland for a few years, and she did it at both ends of the court. Certainly defensively, her on-ball defense against Nicole Hunt was absolutely superb.
And Nicole Hunt started the game brilliantly, but Richards was able to just wear her down with greater experience and real tenacity, and it was just super. Sam Richards ended the game with 19 points and 6 assists. But what about the game of Alice Kunek for the Boomers? I know you were really thrilled with her development.
Well, Darren, again, like a Molly Lewis, she came out of nowhere to start. She only played very limited minutes last year, and she just had the game of her life. So if she continued that form the rest of the season, what a great starting role for her.
Liz Cambage there on screen didn't have a massive influence in the game. 10 points, 5 rebounds, and we actually got 5 fouls. She was out of the the game in the last quarter. What did you make of her performance?
Well, really, she didn't have much of an impact on the game at all, and maybe it'll take her a little while to find her feet back in the league. A few home-cooked meals from Mom to settle her down, but right now she needs to sort of get a bit of fitness back, but she'll be right in the mix of things.
We just keep seeing Sam Richards in these highlights. Taylor Roberts was involved there. Rachel Jarry had almost a double-double. I've mentioned Koenig had a double-double, but one player that we haven't mentioned is probably your favourite from the game, the 24-year-old Brit, Jo Leedham.
Well, she was fun to watch out there, and I had a bit of a chat to her at the Bulleen launch, and she mentioned that Tom, who coaches there, her UK team, the way he described their team was, there's bad, and then there's bottom of the barrel, and you are bottom of the barrel. That was his words. So, having said that, she said Tom Marr's a great coach and certainly has lifted their team.
Yeah, so we can probably write off the UK as a middle threat at the London Olympics.
I think so.
But we are excited about what Jo Leedham can bring to the WNBL. She's really scrappy. She's tenacious. She had a few highlights during the game, just as Chantella Pereira did there with that little quarter-court bomb at the end of the game to finish it. And in the end, it was a 20-point victory of the Boomers, 88-68. And Laurie, I've got to say, they surprised me with how good they were, and I feel like they sent a message to the rest of the league that, hang on, we're not going to be any pushovers here.
Oh, absolutely, Darren. They sent a message loud and clear. Even without Liz Cambage, we can get that job done.
Let's have a look at the other games now in round one. Starting off with the Sydney University Flames, who also welcomed back a couple of stars to the league. Belinda Snell and Alicia Poto were the two champs that they returned to their lineup again after a few years away playing overseas, and they were pretty comfortable in their win over the AIS.
They were, Darren, and it wasn't only what Belinda Snell could do. How about Amy Denson, continuing on with her All-Star 5 form from the Siebel and from the WNBL with 23 points.
Also last Friday night, the Townsville Fire christened their home stadium, their new home stadium, the Townsville RSL Stadium, with a victory over the Bendigo Spirit. Laurie, it was only 1 point the difference, Townsville in front at the last change. We're at three-quarter time, but it's so hard to nail those final quarter victories away from home, particularly up there in Townsville. Oh,
look, Bendigo would have gone into that game hoping to get it done as the first game of that doomsday double that they call that Townsville-Logan, but not to be. Christy Harrower didn't have a huge game, and we know she had some issues earlier in the week that I'm sure had some impact on her playing. Yeah, it was a bit of a concern there. We'll talk a little bit more about Christy and the Bendigo Spirit and what's going on there in a minute, because they did have another game over the weekend. But I tell you who was really impressive, the Adelaide Lightning. They got the job done against the West Coast Waves. It was about a 14-point margin at half-time, Laurie, but they put the foot down in the third quarter. 20 points to 2 was the run out of half-time. And I tell you what, Peter Buckle, there's a headline in the Adelaide paper saying he might have caught lightning in a bottle. Now, you don't mind a play on words yourself, I know that, but I thought that was pretty appropriate. They looked stocked. Darren, who is going to stop Susie Bakovic? Yeah. 29 points, 14 rebounds, just in her first outing. Thank you very much. Wasn't bad. And Abby Bishop with a lazy double-double. And Amy Lewis, too, was super impressive with 18 points. Of course, she's followed Peter Buckle down from Townsville to the Adelaide Lightning. Turning our attention to the games on Sunday, and the Bendigo Spirit and Canberra Capitals both had to back up. For Canberra, it was at Dandenong, and we know how tough that is as well. The Rangers also look like they've got a pretty stocked roster. Another game, Laurie, that was close at three-quarter time, but the Rangers had a little bit too much down the stretch. Well, Darren, I was watching that game on live stats, and it was back and forth right those last few minutes, and then the Canberra, I think they just purely and simply ran out of legs and went down by 3 points. But again, some great skills were demonstrated by some wonderful players. Kathleen McLeod led all scorers with 21 points, and good for Canberra that their import, Bridget Ardosi, had almost a double-double in that game, 11 rebounds after she struggled a little bit in her debut match. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she goes. I thought she did struggle against the Bulleen Boomers. She may need to find her feet. But again, the more she plays on the court, the more she plays in this league, she'll get better and better. The final match of the weekend came from Logan Metro, and the home side were in control. They were 16 points up at three-quarter time, the Logan Thunder, on the back of a brilliant performance from Kayla Francis, 18 points and 15 rebounds. But this Spirit side, they show a lot of it. Probably uncharacteristic for them to be so far behind. They rattled back
but just couldn't get the job done.
18 points down at three-quarter time. I think they got back to within 4, but again, having just played in Townsville, tough ask to come back and front up against Logan. They would be disappointed. They would have hoped to have split that weekend, but it's done and dusted now, so we'll see how we go.
And just quickly, Laurie, as we have a look at the ladder, we can see down the bottom, Bendigo and Canberra. That's pretty surprising. Up the top, of course, the teams that didn't lose in round 1, but what do you say about those?
Well, considering that Bendigo and Canberra were both finalists last year, it's Canberra in the grand final, but I don't think we'll find them there very much longer.
We should note, of course, that there was a clean sweep of the home sides in the opening week. All 6 matches were won by the home side, so that's going to be something to watch. A really important thing for the going forward in the rest of the year if we're trying to pick some winners, Laurie.
Well, if a league is that close, certainly to win your home games is absolutely vital.
All right. Well, that's round 1. We're all wrapped up there. Now, but before the season started, of course, Laurie, we had the WNBL season launch, and at that time, we sent out, and again, I'll say it again, because she's really getting out and about amongst it, our intrepid reporter, Catherine Murphy, went along and she decided to have a chat to not just anyone, but one of the brightest stars in the WNBL sky.
Thanks for that, guys. This girl needs little introduction. She's back from a big year in America to star with the Bullying Boomers. It's Liz Cambage. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. You had a massive year even before coming back to Australia. How was it, that whole experience of being picked overall second in the draft?
Yeah, you know, it's just been such a crazy year, you know, MVP and winning the championship, and then, you know, off on a jet to being named second in the draft, and then, you know, back home here in Melbourne already, and it's just crazy. The bit of a whirlwind, really.
Yeah, what about when you were over there? You've made jokes about it before, but your team came up with a bit of a record that you probably don't want to have on your CV. Have you come to terms with that yet?
Having a record, it's nice to have a record. It's not every day you break a record, but having a record of 22 losses in a row, I think it's the worst for a professional team. It's not the best of records, but it's still something I'll wear on my chin because I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, no doubt you're hoping for better things now that you're back. How good is it to be home?
There's really no place like home, and back in my city of Melbourne with my family and my friends, it's just so good to be back, and we've got such a young squad at Bulleen. It's just so exciting to be a part of it all.
Despite being just 20, you're actually one of the most experienced players at Bulleen. Are you ready for that leadership role?
Most days I forget I'm 20. I feel like a bit of a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, and you know, I think that's good being so young yet so mature, but I still know how to have a good time. A bit of fun, I like to think, but you know, it will be interesting. You know, I've learned a lot, I've matured a lot over the year, and I'm ready to take on a leadership role.
Having spent that time in the US, what's the best piece of advice that you give to the youngest girls on the team who are starting out?
Really just never stop believing in yourself. You know, people will try to break you down and they'll do whatever they can do to get to you, but you got to be strong and just be yourself and be you.
Now that you're back to following one of the sports that I know you really love, and you got a lovely homecoming present from Geelong who won the grand final for you. How was that experience? It
was awesome. You know, 3 premierships in 5 years is such an amazing accomplishment from the boys, and they really are one of the best teams for the era, and it's crazy being able to go to 2 of those 3 grand finals, being there, and it was the most amazing game, and it was even better that they got to beat Collingwood.
I agree. Even better that they got to beat the Pies. How did you end up supporting Geelong?
My mum grew up in Ocean Grove, and my nana, she's a Geelong supporter as well, so we've got 3 generations of it in our family, so yeah.
But you did spend some of your time growing up in Coffs Harbour, and I believe you've a dark past as a Sydney Swans fan.
I was a Sydney Swans supporter growing up in Coffs Harbour as a kid, and then when we moved to Melbourne, my mum worked for David Smorgon, and I was a Western Bulldogs supporter because I always get to go see the boys after the game, and you know, had signed jerseys and everything. And then I was about 13 when I opened my eyes to the light of Geelong, and I never looked back.
Open your eyes to the light. That's harsh on Sydney. I know that you bumped into some Sydney Swans players who know where you've grown up. They're really keen for you to support them.
I'm really worried about how people know. Like, not many people know I spent my childhood in Coffs Harbour, so that's really interesting.
They're pretty good at research, the Swans boys. Is there any chance of a changeover because of that?
Not really. Geelong for life. My veins are now blue and white, and there'll be no changing that.
Good for you. Thank you so much, Liz. Before we finish, I have to step in. Because I'm such a midget, I just want to show the height difference. And just can I bear in mind, I'm wearing massive heels, like heels this high.
Little pocket rocket over here.
I'm the little pocket rocket.
Well, Laurie, I'm glad I gave Catherine that $50 so that she was in that interview and in that shot, because I can tell you, I'd probably look just as silly.
Well, that's like you standing on the box between Rachel and I, isn't it, on the ABC, Darren?
That's exactly what it is. I do that pretty much every week, don't I? Thank you very much for bringing that up. There are no secrets here, and I tell you what, big secret, it's out of the bag. Catherine Murphy is over at the news desk. Catherine, we intimated earlier that there's been a big breaking story today in the WNBL, and you've got the details.
Thank you, guys. And yes, as you said, a massive news story for the WNBL with the announcement today that Australia's best ever female basketballer Lauren Jackson will return home. She's signed up to play the next 3 out of 5 seasons with the Canberra Capitals. It's a huge boost for them. In the meantime, she heads off to the Spanish League to play a season in Valencia, but she will be back to focus on the Olympics next season. And what great news for the league. Speaking of stars, Balloon Boomers point guard Samantha Richards has won the Player of the Week for round 1. She spoke after the game. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
Sam, congratulations, MVP for this match. Fantastic game from you. What a way to start the season.
Yeah, good start. I mean, it's always nervous in that first game. You never know how you're going to come out, but we've had a great preparation. We played in China a few games, and girls really bonded well. And we're, after last year they had a bad start. We wanted to change that this year and come away with a good win first up, and we did that.
You certainly did, and your own performance, absolutely incredible. Changes of pace, rebounds, assists, everything. How are you feeling about your season ahead? How are the knees holding up?
Yeah, no, coming along. It's always going to take some time to gel into a group, but really happy with the way it started. And I couldn't ask for anything more to get a first up win. Really, that's all you're playing for.
And it's going to be important sending out that message to the rest of the comp.
Yeah, of course. I think this league this year is going to be really tough all around the board. So I think every game you've got to come up ready to play. Otherwise, I think you're going to get burnt. So, it's a great start, and we're looking forward to the next games.
So we Sam, congratulations and all the best for the rest of the season.
Congratulations to Sam, indeed. What a great game by her. Now we're off to Dandenong Rangers and an injury update there. They look set to welcome back star player Jenna O'Hay from injury. She missed round 1 due to a calf strain, but they're very excited to have her back this weekend for the game against the Logan Thunder. We also have some injury news from the AIS. They will again be without Michaela Donnelly. She suffered a stress reaction in her foot in the build-up to the season. She misses another week, but they're really hopeful she will be back for round 3. Now we finish on a much lighter note. If you follow Liz Cambage on Twitter, which over 6,000 people do, so there's a good chance that you do, you'll see that she's been complaining about the snoring of one of her teammates, and that is Karen Harrington. Now, she's since revealed that the snoring was, of course, down to a chest infection. We rang the club and we can assure all fans that she will play this weekend, Karen. We're not sure about the snoring problem, if that's going to continue. That's it from me. Back to you guys. No doubt, though, the big story is Lauren Jackson.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Catherine, with the news. And I can tell you, Lizzie, there's not hiding much. I know we're going to talk briefly about Lauren Jackson, but there's not hiding much. If you follow Lizzie on Twitter, @eCambage, you find out all sorts of stuff. We're going to get you on Twitter, Laurie. That's what we're going to do.
Yes, but I'd like to really talk about Lauren Jackson. Yeah. That is a massive coup for the WNBL, for Canberra. You know what, Darren? When she was here playing, last year, capacity crowds. She signed every single autograph there. Yeah. She just lifted the profile of the league, and it is so exciting that she's going to be back.
It really was. That day, although those couple of games that we had at the Cage, the State Netball and Hockey Centre in Melbourne, including the grand final, which sold out within 24 hours or thereabouts, which is unheard of for a WNBL game at such a venue. It was simply remarkable, and what she does for this sport, just by being there, is a credit to her.
And how about that matchup, Lauren Jackson, Liz Cambage, both stars, one in the making, one that's already there. It's mouth-watering stuff.
Yeah, can't wait. So, of course, it won't be this year, but it will be next year, and then a couple of seasons after that as well for Lauren Jackson and the Caps to just reharmonise again. It's a beautiful relationship that they have. All right, let's have a look now to what's coming up in round 2. And the matches start on Friday night. Our first game will be with the AIS hosting the Townsville Fire. And Laurie, I reckon this AIS side, after a pretty tough off-season with World Championships for most of them, they're going to be really hard to toss at home.
Well, they'll be interesting. Certainly, I think they'll be highly competitive, and nobody can underestimate them. You're right, they played in the World Championships, the under-19s. Their bodies will have matured from last year. They basically kept the same group of girls. Mentally, they're toughened a little bit, so I think you cannot underestimate the AIS group.
Yeah, I agree, but Townsville, of course, will come into that game as favourites. Our ABC match for broadcast this week comes from Adelaide. We'll have you can check your local guides. Our coverage will be on Saturday afternoon. The game is on Friday night, and Laurie, I am so excited about this. The two sides who I think did the best recruiting in the off-season, Adelaide and Sydney Uni.
There's going to be matchups galore to watch. I want to see one of the best defenders in the competition, Jennifer Screen, up against one of the best offensive weapons in Belinda Snell. And who's going to stop Susie Batkovich?
I don't know. I really don't. And that's the thing when you look at these sides. Like, Sydney seem to have built their side around a perimeter game, whereas Adelaide is so big up front with Batkovich and Bishop.
I think Adelaide are so deep. They just have every position covered. Both teams have really good point guards in Marino and Poto, so really, who do you pick, Darren? ABC game?
I'm going to reserve judgment for that one for Friday night. You'll have to watch to find out, and I'll probably text you once I know the result and say that I tipped somebody else. Turning our attention to Saturday's games, and the Canberra Capitals will host the Townsville Fire, who are backing up on the second game of a road double. I'll tell you what, must-win game for the Caps. They've got a really difficult start to the season.
Well, starting 0-2, they would be really hungry for this win, knowing that Townsville played the AIS the night before, and that, like we said, that will be a tough game. They will be so keen to get that W on home court.
They really will, and it's going to be one of many matchups this year where you've got a coach and a former assistant coach working together. Of course, this time it's Chris Lucas of Townsville up against Carrie Graff.
Well, we do. We have Tom Marr and Carrie Graff clones everywhere with Peter Buckle, with Chris Lucas, and they'll be talking about Graffy's 4 Ps, although, Darren, I spoke to Graffy today and she's increased it from 4 Ps to 6 Ps. So we'll reveal those 6 ones at another stage.
Yeah, okay. She should really trademark that or something, I think, Graffy, the amount of press that we give her. Now, a couple of ripper games in Melbourne this week on Saturday night. The first one that we'll talk about is the rematch of the elimination final, the Dandenong Rangers against the Logan Thunder. Laurie, I know that the Rangers will be seeking some sort of revenge because they were devastated to go out as they did last year to the Logan Thunder, who looked really impressive in beating Bendigo last week and had been able to keep the bulk of their squad together from last year.
Well, both teams sort of have similar lineups to last year, same coaches, so they would both go into that game, you know, feeling very confident about it. Certainly with Dandenong, the inclusion of Jenna O'Hay back into the lineup will be a huge boost to that team.
Yeah, no doubt at all. They really need her. She is such a class player. Now, the other game on Saturday night is an all-Victorian battle, the first one this year, and we know how pivotal these ones are when it comes down to the pointy end of the season. The Bulleen Boomers are hosting the Bendigo Spirit, and Laurie, the Spirit were the only side after round 2 last year to beat the Boomers. They started 0-2 and then went on to win, I think it was 21 of their next 22 games on the road to the championship. So the Spirit will go into this game with confidence, but do you think they're over the dramas that beset them over the last few weeks before the season started?
Well, I'm not sure, Darren. I spoke to Christy Harrower today about her contract, and really there'd been no further negotiations to date. So as we speak, her playing contract runs till March 31st, and her GM contract is still up in the air. So hopefully that doesn't have an effect, because I'm not sure how, but certainly Bendigo were somehow able to find a way to beat Bulleen last year.
Yeah, and I guess it's a little bit unsettling as well, because they're such a community club, and with Christy there and her father Bernie going a public record saying saying how disappointed he was with the club's handling of the situation with Christie and her playing and general manager contract. It's really tough, and I think coming into this season they had really high hopes. Starting 0-2, it's already, again, a must-win game for them.
Well, it is, Darren, but add to that drama that Jeremy Moule, one of the assistant coaches, he's almost also chairman of the board, which is dealing with the Christie Hera general manager issue. So it's interesting. Let's hope it's all played out in a really positive way.
Yeah, I really hope so, and hope they can keep their continuity on court, because they'll need to at the Veneto Club to challenge the Boomers. The final game for round 2 is over in Perth, where the West Coast Waves had their first home game for the season, and they are hosting the Sydney Uni Flames on the back end of a doomsday double. And I think the biggest feature for the locals, Laurie, which will get them out and looking at this game, is the return of Rahani Cox. She's back to Perth, and it's great to see.
Oh, absolutely. The locals would just be licking their lips the fact that she's back and playing in that wonderful new venue that we visited last year. I think all the fans get out. You know, Tully Bevilacqua was left, but Rahani Cox has come in and is equally an exciting player.
Yeah, both Olympians and different styles of game.
Absolutely.
And it will be interesting to see whether or not they can challenge Sydney Uni after they struggled last week against Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Sydney is the stronger team, but certainly West Coast, they think they're going to make the playoffs this year, or that's a goal that they set. So that's really good, and they'll want to try and get this first home win.
All right. Well, it promises to be a really interesting round, I think, Laurie, coming up. And I tell you, it's been great to be here with you. It's been really exciting.
It's fun to have a chat, and like I say, we're going to do this every Wednesday evening.
And as we say, it will be every Wednesday evening, and we want you to interact with us. We mentioned before, but we'll mention it again, the WNBL Twitter handle, @WNBL. You can tweet us, get all your messages, your questions to us. Check out the WNBL on Facebook. Check out their website, wnbl.com.au. And, well, we can even tweet. Well, we'll get Laurie on Twitter this week. You can tweet me @DarrenBoyd01 as well. We'll get you on Twitter this week.
Okay, all right.
Bring you into this newfangled thing.
That's the challenge.
All right, it will be a bit of a challenge. All right, that's about all we've got time for on WNBL ITV. Thank you very much for your company, and we look forward to being with you again next week.